All right, AP Human Geo people, let's see if we can finish up the population unit today. Just a whole bunch more random population stuff. So, two words that you should probably be quite familiar with, well, especially the first one. Immigration is the act of coming to live permanently in a foreign country. Immigration is something I did when I went to South Korea. I filled out all the paperwork where I intended to sort of work there for the foreseeable future, and I was there for a little more than 2 years. And emigration with an E is the act of leaving your country to go somewhere else. So this is the term that sometimes tricks people. Immigration is coming in, emigration is going out. So I immigrated to South Korea and emigrated from the United States. My brother in law emigrated from El Salvador, immigrated to the United States. So that's kind of the vibe right there with those two words. Okay? All right. And traditionally, immigration is mostly done by men. I think I covered that in Ravenstein's laws. And the United Arab Emirates is a country that absolutely sees this reality. I said today it's a more balanced ratio. No, it's still pretty lopsided. Like this is their population ratio here. So you can see you're like, whoa, what happened in the UAE? Why do they have so many more men of working age than women? Well, it's because the UAE is where they're. Whoa, what just happened there? Hello, hi. Oh, all right, we're back. The UAE is where they've done so much building. Like they got the tallest building in the world, and they're building these other amazing buildings. And I think actually right now they're on track to build 6 out of the top 10 tallest buildings in the world in just the country of the UAE. So I'm like, wow. And yeah, so they have all these migrant laborers. A lot of them come from India and Indonesia, and these guys are just working all day and building these super big buildings. And typically the men immigrate first, and then the women get called in once the men get settled. But the UAE actually has really hardcore immigration laws, and they're like, you guys are guest workers. You're going to be here for a couple years working, and go home. Don't bring your families. Don't settle. Don't buy property. And yeah, that's kind of rude. Kind of rude, UAE. So anyway, check it out. That's their population pyramid. There's the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world. Here's a bunch of guys building those fancy buildings, working all day, live in pretty terrible conditions, and they don't get paid a lot and don't get a lot of respect. So give these migrant workers some love. All right, and then there's something called periodic migration, also temporary movement. And this was really highlighted back in the day with the USA and Mexico, something called the Bracero program. And I want you guys to kind of summarize the Bracero program here if you can. So, for this 22-year period, right at the end of World War II, the USA made an agreement with Mexico saying, hey, we've got a lot of guys who are fighting in World War II or who are still like kind of securing the lands of Germany and Japan. So we could use a whole lot of young men to work our farms while our guys are off fighting. And Mexico was happy to oblige. So especially during harvest season. And it created this chance for immigrants to just come for 3 months to work on American farms, go back to Mexico, and bring a bunch of money back home with them. It was the largest foreign worker program ever enacted by the USA. And during this later period of World War II, as many as 10% of workers in the United States were Mexican nationals. So, yeah, like there was a whole bunch of movement back and forth across the border, and things were pretty legit back during the 40s and 60s. Like no one, 40s, 50s, 60s, no one was really anti-Mexicans during that time. But it was only once sort of a lot of the guys came home and we settled what the war in Korea and stuff, and then there's more and more Americans at home. They're like, hey, we can't find jobs. People started to blame the immigrants. And U.S. workers complained these Mexicans were stealing their jobs, so this program was officially canceled. However, many of these Mexicans who participated in the Bracero program saw all the economic opportunity in the United States, and they returned to the United States as illegal immigrants. And so this program, kind of the consequences of it, created the illegal immigration issues that we deal with in our country today. So, but I mean, overall, I think periodic immigration is fine. I think that there are certain seasons where people will have a greater need. I think a good example, well, this isn't really with immigration, but this is with employment, is like the water park Wet and Wild. I know they're basically only open during the summer, and they always try to hire a whole bunch of young people to be their lifeguards and stuff, and they're like, okay, you're gonna work for the summer, and then job's over. So that's this whole kind of temporary vibe of having a job or requesting immigrants. So let's check it out. All right, here they are giving some Mexican workers passport stamps. These guys are working in America. Mexican workers wanted in October. We need 6,000 Mexican workers for the month of October. That's cool. And here's these guys. They're coming to work in our country, but they don't get treated very well at all. Super rude. Foreigners go home, immigrants out. It's not immigration, it's invasion. Well, I kind of disagree. Send them back with birth control. Oh, good. That's not good. Not good is what I wanted to say. And then build that wall. Oh gosh. Bittersweet harvest, no doubt. Okay, and then another example of periodic immigration is when kids go away to college. I mean, I went away to Santa Barbara, California for 4 years, and then after that I moved back home to San Diego. Another example is serving in the military. Like a lot of these military guys, they get sent off to bases all over the country or sometimes even the world, and their family gets redeployed with them. But typically, once their service in the military is done, they'll eventually move back to their hometown. So these are examples of, you'll see a whole lot of people of maybe one demographic, and then they'll go back to where they came from. So, oh God, college, what a crazy time. I wish I could relive it. Yeah, college parties, epic. And then the military, not so much. Did have a good time there. And yep, having a house in the military. So yeah, this is Ithaca. I think this is the city. What college is in Ithaca? I usually have a kid look this up. Gosh, how can I not remember this? It might be like Cornell or something. But as you see here in this population pyramid, huge big number of people in their late teens and early 20s because they're all college students. And right here, Lawrence City, Kansas. Yep, a whole bunch of people in their early 20s. This is Lexington City. So this is, well, there's a lot more dudes than girls. So I think Lexington is probably some kind of a military academy. It might be a college and a military academy because usually men tend to be in the military more than women. So that would make sense why there's a 10% increase on the male side. And then, yeah, Christmas Island 2011. So many more men than women. So I can tell you that this is either a military base or it's maybe some kind of, maybe it's like an oil platform thing or maybe a logging camp. Probably some sort of job that's significantly more male-dominated than female-dominated. All right. So what does this pyramid tell us about Sun City, Arizona? Wow, this is a crazy pyramid. You usually don't see anything like this. There's literally no one between the ages of 0 and 34. So this is a very unique city that must have some kind of laws or restrictions saying that you gotta be of a certain age to live there. So this is some kind of super retirement community. And just looking at that population pyramid, hey, I was right. So Sun City, Arizona has rules requiring everyone who lives there to be 55 plus with no kids. So yeah, Sun City's pretty interesting. I mean, if your grandparents live there, you can visit, but I think they'll like kick you out if you live there for more than like a week consistently. So it's supposed to be some happy land where old people go to hang out for the rest of their lives. So that's cool. So yeah, check out the planning of Sun City, Arizona. It's the streets are all designed in a circular way, probably really easily accessible for everyone to get around. And then, yep, the distribution of residents, a lot more females than males in Sun City. And that's just because women tend to last their whole lives, and men, we have more health problems and disasters and whatnot. So, yep, Sun City right there. And then, yeah, here's a lady who checked out Sun City. There's the Sun City cheerleaders. I think that's just kind of funny that got grandmas doing cheerleading stuff. And then, how long will $1 million in retirement last in selected U.S. cities? So, Houston, you could live for 26 years on $1 million. And New York City, you could live 17 years. So, Houston, you'll live 9 more years longer. So, people tend to want to try to live in cheaper places when they retire. And they also want to live in warmer places. A lot of old people, they just give up living in the northern part of the United States. They just don't want to deal with winters anymore. That's why you find so many old people in Florida. All right, what do we got here? Oh, yeah, Thomas Malthus. Okay, so you should have read about Thomas Malthus in the key issues reading, but he's an important guy for this unit. Let me explain about him. He was a British geographer who lived 150 years ago, and he predicted that the population would grow too much and we would run out of resources, especially food based resources. He said there just wouldn't be enough food to go around, people would starve, people would kill each other, there'd be natural disasters, and the world would go to crap. So Malthus, he really tried to push on people like we need to control our population. And he even like argued like war was a good thing, that war kills people, those people won't have babies, they will limit the population growth, the world will be saved. And today there are neo-Malthusians, and they care so much. Like Malthus's big argument was there's not enough food to go around, but today's neo-Malthusians, they're all about like stopping global warming and saving the environment and saving the climate. And they predict, honestly, correctly, that the more people who are on planet Earth, the more destruction will be done to the environment. So we should limit the population to save Mother Earth. All right, read the book Rainbow Six, the original Rainbow Six, and like there's these like eco terrorists who try to kill people to save the planet. It's kind of wild. Anyway, so yeah, resources are finite. There's not enough to go around. Everything should be perfectly balanced. I wonder what supervillain basically agrees with Thomas Malthus that you have to kill people to save resources and save the planet. So yeah, here's human geography. This theory was the population would outpace resources, but in reality, it hasn't. Okay, in reality, we haven't reached carrying capacity yet. Thomas Malthus predicted it wrong. But yeah, this is that idea, overpopulation. We are not there yet, and I think I did read somewhere that demographers did some pretty in-depth studies of planet Earth, and that if we do things right, planet Earth could accommodate 20 billion people. So what are we at, like 7.6 right now? So we could still triple the world's population, well, almost triple the world's population, and things will be fine. We will have to redistribute people around the world, though, because some places their carrying capacity is reached. So what is this? Instead of controlling the environment for the benefit of the population, perhaps it's time to control the population to allow for the survival of the environment. Thanos. All right, and then Malthusian theory of population. Yep, it's we don't grow enough food, but population grows almost exponentially. We've got to correct this by war, misery, floods, famines. So yeah. And then world capita energy consumption. So as years have gone on, more and more people are using our energy. And then maybe Thanos was right. Oh gosh, gotta snap your fingers. Wipe out half the population to keep the resources in check. Earth first. No compromise. Defense of Earth. Imagine a balanced universe. And yeah, these two guys, Thanos and Malthus, they would have agreed on some things. Like, Malthus would have watched Avengers Infinity War and been like, good. That would have been really messed up. Okay, so I've got this quiz. Maybe we'll do that in class together. Let's talk through some of these maps. Use terms like density and distribution. All right, let's do that. So half the United States lives in the shaded counties. So that's basically New York State, Pennsylvania, a couple of those other little states, Jersey. So yeah, that's half of everybody in the entirety of the USA. So that shows you how much more dense the East Coast is than the West Coast. And here's another one. Half the U.S. population lives in these shaded counties. So this is just spread out over all the major cities, it looks like. And it's sort of like we got these few major cities, and then everyone else lives elsewhere. Here's kind of that same vibe too. Half the population's in red, half the population's in orange. That's wild that the entire population of New York could be spread out over these like 7 states. Same thing with LA. And then the people who live along the coast is almost the same as all the people who live in the interior west of the Mississippi. So that's crazy too. And here I think this is a really cool map. Distribution by latitude. So if planet Earth was a teeter-totter, the top part of this teeter-totter is way more weighed down by human bodies. I think I can comfortably say 80% of all the people on planet Earth live in the north half of planet Earth, and almost nobody lives in the southern half. But then again, there is a lot more land in the northern half of planet Earth too, so that's cool. And then if you just look by latitude line, it's like so many people live right here at what the Tropic of Capricorn. So this is a really like kind of good temperature vibe of planet Earth too. You know, you're probably not going to get severe winters, and well, you will get some severe summers around there, but overall pretty legit. All right, distribution by longitude. So in our half of planet Earth, definitely not as many people. Africa and Europe, a medium amount of people, but Asia just packed to the brim. So Asia, you've got to redistribute that population around. And then yeah, here's the country of India, but they divided it based on the population of countries. So they fit everybody who lives in the United States into this one part of the Ganges River Valley. Just shows you how dense India is. And then here's New York by ethnicity. So you can see that so many neighborhoods in New York are very ethnically consolidated. Like Staten Island's a whole bunch of white folks. Brooklyn, there's a big African community, there's an Asian community, there's a Hispanic community, there's white communities. Things are not as mixed as you would expect. I think the Bronx is generally mixed, and yeah, Manhattan's almost all white over here. There's a big Asian part. I think that's Chinatown. So it's interesting how neighborhoods in the United States are generally racially divided. And then each colored area is a fourth of Canada's population. So half of Canada's population is right along here with the border, or right around the Great Lakes. And then this is a quarter of Canada's population is around the border with America. And then so much of Canada is just wide open nothingness. Just trees, snow, and wolves. And what do we got here? The dominant racial group. So if it's a darker color here, that means it's mostly white folks. Hispanic folks are in teal, and Native Americans are in green, and this is Black Americans are in orange. So there's not a lot of places in the United States where African Americans are the dominant racial group. Only one place where Asians are the dominant racial group. So it's really white people still have the majority in the vast parts of this country, with the exception of some of these Native American reservations and some Hispanic zones and a couple African American zones in southern states. What do we got here? The difference in when women start having families. So it looks like, well, I don't know if I can identify an easy pattern here, but in the New England states over here, women tend to have babies later. But in Texas and some of these other places, well, Nevada, you know, what's going on over there? I think, is that kind of by Reno? Women tend to be younger when they have their first kid. So that's interesting. What do we got here? Median age range of everyone in the United States. So where are there younger people? Utah. Utah is a very young state. And then older states, Maine is pretty old. A lot of old people. Florida, well, there's a couple young counties in Florida. But it looks like a lot of this center part of the United States is pretty darn balanced. And generally, you'll find younger people in the more southern parts of the U.S. A lot of young people in Alaska, too, it looks like. All right, demographic momentum. This is a concept that will be on the test. So it's this concept that a population can still be growing even if fertility rates are falling. And this can happen for two reasons. So population growth is always, are there more people coming in than going out? So there are more people being born than people are dying. And if there's some huge medical advancement that allows people to live till they're like 150, well, that'll cause a pretty serious demographic momentum because very few people will be dying. And then another thing with demographic momentum is, you know, are people having more babies? And if they are, well, then obviously things will be growing. And especially as long as that fertility rate is more than 2.1. If there's more babies being born, the population will continue to grow. Sometimes it'll grow really slow, but the prediction is that you can always sort of look at how many kids are in your country and just say, okay, well, 20 years from now, all those kids will be of childbearing age themselves, and are they going to have the same number of kids? They're going to have even more kids, so you can sort of predict the long-term effects on your country. So yeah, this concept could also be seen in reverse. If there's a whole bunch of people at under childbearing age, you'll expect that they'll make kids of their own in the next 2 decades. So yeah, no doubt. So it's either keep the old people going on longer or having more kids or having more immigration. That'll absolutely change your population statistics. Okay, so big old African family. And then, yeah, look at the population pyramid of Bangladesh. This is a while ago. This isn't current, but looking at something like this, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to have so many kids in 20 years. This country's just going to get overwhelmed with human beings. And then, yeah, a bunch of old people. And so, yeah, Uganda's population will grow from demographic momentum. Thailand's population's probably pretty stable looking at that pyramid. Finished. Hooray, we did it. All right, peace out, kids.